So we're still talking about the young and talented clarinet player who realized 2 years late that he had been cheated out of a life-changing education, all because his college girlfriend kept him from seeing his acceptance letter and then sent him a fake rejection letter in its place. Still with me, Samantha Schmidt, the reporter for the Washington Post, who's been following this story. Marshall Reinhardt is the attorney for Eric Abramovitz, and defense attorney Brian Claypool is still with me. So Marshall Reinhardt, walk me through what happened once Eric finally decided, you know what, I have lost way too much in this whole hoodwinking thing. I'm taking it to court. What did the judge say?
Well, the judge was very clear in his condemnation of Miss Lee's conduct, and that's no surprise. He understood that really it was quite reprehensible what she did, and then he had to look at the damages that we were seeking, and there are different heads of damages that we were seeking. One was the financial loss that he suffered. One, as a result of him being delayed into the workplace, because if he had obtained, if he had the opportunity to study with Mr. Gilad, he probably would have entered the workforce 2 years earlier. Plus, there had to be some compensation for the loss of the rare educational opportunity to study with such a distinguished clarinet pedagogue. So
I like that you sort of did this math.
And
the math that then you have to tell me if I'm wrong here, because I know there's a Canadian dollar and an American dollar difference, but that he would have probably earned $150,000 upon graduation per year. So that's 2 years, about $300,000. Not to mention the $50,000 per year scholarship, and that's another $100,000 US. So
right.
What figure did the judge ultimately settle on and say, Jennifer Lee, you must pay?
Well, in Canadian dollars, the total amount was $350,000. Plus his
265-ish American?
But that comprised two other heads of damages, which are only really awarded in exceptional circumstances. And they're related damages. One is punitive damages and the other is aggravated damages. And
right.
As I said, these are only awarded in exceptional circumstances where, well, with punitive damages, not surprisingly, they are designed to punish the defendant. Yep.
And by the way, punitive damages are way more frequent, shall we say, south of the border here in the U.S. Let me just ask Brian Claypool real quickly. Jennifer Lee didn't bother showing up for court, Brian, and so this was default judgment, which means she doesn't get to argue this any other time, right? She can't argue her case. She can't give a reason. She can't give a defense anymore. It's done. But you know what? She's now 24 years old. This happened at age 22. You could effectively say it's real hard getting blood from a stone. How do you get blood from a stone?
Well, I know in the U.S. that this judgment against Miss Lee would be dischargeable if she files for what's called Chapter 7, which is a consumer bankruptcy. There's only a few things that are not dischargeable, such as paying, if you borrowed money to pay taxes, child support, alimony. So even though this is a judgment based on fraud, I think Canadian laws are probably the same and mirror the U.S. And if they do, the reality is that she's not likely to pay anything on this judgment if she files for bankruptcy.
Well, you know, I hope somewhere at the border, if she ever wants to do anything musical or any other kind of activity south of the border, they'll look and see that she owes somebody. And, you know, oftentimes that can follow you where you least expect it. Marshall Reinhardt, thank you so much for your time. Samantha Schmidt, thanks for being on the show. Brian Claypool, more work for you. You can't go anywhere.